So to introduce myself, my name is Janie, and I was a business and accounting major at UCLA. And this is actually my first year being on the APA UCLA board. And I'm co-chairing it with Mike, who's in the room today as well. And basically, one of our initiatives for this year is we really wanted to create a stronger community of APA run businesses. Because for me personally, like I'm someone who runs a small business, and especially during this time, like there's already so much isolation as it is. I feel like I definitely found a lot of support, through these communities of like other business owners getting to talk about the struggles and different kind of hurdles that we encountered. And I really just believe that we can help each other out when it comes to sharing this wisdom and knowledge and also being able to support other small businesses. So basically for everyone here today, whether you're just a small business owner, a working professional, or like a friend of UCLA, I just really hope that you'll find something beneficial out of this or be able to learn something different from a small business perspective as well. Basically for this panel, it was really important for us to be able to find panelists across like a whole array of industries, right? So we really wanted to get like a lot of different perspectives on different things. And I just really want to thank them for their time today. I think as COVID numbers continue to increase, I think I saw that there's been over 1 million cases in the US this past week alone, which is, crazy. And I think it's like a sobering reminder that our day-to-day lives are just very unpredictable. And, we're really just in here for the long haul as 2020 draws to a close. So I'm really looking forward to see what the panelists have to say today. And basically, I spoke to all of them probably a month or two ago, and that was when things were beginning to normalize. And now basically, a lot of stuff has changed. We may be getting close to a shutdown again. So for me personally, like this is a really interesting conversation because even since our conversations, I think a lot of stuff has changed as well. And seeing how like they've continued to adapt and kind of grow their businesses. So starting off, I'm actually going to have the panelists introduce themselves first. So Harold, if you want to start.
Sure. My name's Harold. I am a UCLA undergrad alum from 2004. Studied cybernetics in my undergrad, which I don't think they have anymore as a major. I run a solar company called Go Green Solar. The corporate name is Gigawatt. And we have a niche in the DIY solar field. So we provide solar panels, inverters, and all the parts and pieces for homeowners to install solar on their homes. And we service customers nationwide.
Perfect. And David?
My name is David Coe. I graduated in 2001. Actually, I'm doing the UCLA MDE program right now, which is pretty awesome. I recommend that for everybody. It actually helped open up some doors and help hone my business. But anyways, I own Little Fatty LA, a compost bar. We're about to open Skinny Days, which is like a tortilleria and carniceria. That should be open by the end of the year. And then we're opening Baldi's Grocer, which is an Italian-American deli with pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and salads, and like a Trader Joe's aspect to it, with a lot of prepared foods. And we're gonna open Fatty Mart in 6 months. We have a lease approved. That's like an Asian convenience store. Like a true Asian one, where you can get like ramen, you can get like a banh mi, you can get boba, you can get Vietnamese coffee and pastries, and a lot of prepared foods. Yeah, that's who I am.
Awesome. And Teresa?
My name is Teresa. I went to UCLA for dental school and I graduated in 2013. I'm located in the Bay Area in Milpitas, California, and I bought my office from my mentor who did my braces. So I've known him since I was 12. And yeah, it's been definitely an interesting year.
Perfect. And then Theo.
Hey everyone, I'm Theo. Graduated from UCLA undergrad in business and accounting back in 2011, and then actually went back to UCLA to get my MBA in 2017. And that's actually, during my final quarter at UCLA was when I started K-pop Foods. I didn't think I would do that, and 3 years later, I'm still running it. So I'm happy to share the story and excited to talk with everyone.
Awesome. And so starting off, I think the first topic that I want to talk about is reopening. So when I spoke with all of you guys, 1 to 2 months ago, pretty much everyone's business operations had somewhat normalized. They had reopened and everything. So for the ones who are more customer facing, so my first question is for you, Teresa, as a business with patients coming through the door frequently, how have things been with your staff and customers? Like, have you been able to resume normal business at this time?
So right now my office has about 6 chairs in our clinical operatory floor. Because of the pandemic, what I've done is I've reopened and scheduled just 3 columns. So that way every other chair is left open. So it's kind of like we're operating at 50% capacity. But what I've also done is I've installed little divider units in between my chairs. So that way patients, even if I have to seat 2 patients kind of in chairs next to each other, they're more than 6 feet away. They've got a divider. So it gives them a sense of intimacy. So my goal with reopening was not only to create a safe environment for everyone, but also to make them feel at ease and to know that we're doing all we can to make sure everything is kept socially distanced. So the nice thing with dentistry in general and what they've shown this year is that we're really great with infection control even prior to this pandemic. So they've done a lot of studies and they've shown that dental offices are actually a really safe environment. So our infection control policies were the same in the front in our operating areas, but where the changes happen the most for our patients is in the front when they check in. So the waiting room design, how they check in, the questions we ask when they check in. So it's mainly, at least for orthodontics, the flow of the office.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know. I think for all of us who have been avoiding teeth cleanings this year, it's a good reminder that it is still safe to go and do all of that. And then for you, David, being in the restaurant industry, what has reopening looked like? I know you had pretty much changed up operations and everything, but for you, do you feel like things have normalized at this point?
Things are never normal, but we try to navigate it as educated as possible. When the first happened, of course, everyone avoided restaurants and bought a whole bunch of groceries and stayed in their house for like 2 months.
Yeah.
For us, people like Chinese food, and we're pretty good. We think very lightly on our feet. We can pivot really quick. I think that's our greatest strength from the beginning. So when this happened, our team went into like brainstorming mode. We instantly didn't let people inside the building. We took the door. We changed the door to like a farm door where it's split. So there's like the bottom half is closed and the top half swings open, but we leave it open. We put a net with an air curtain. Everything is automated. You can't call in to take an order, only because just because it's so busy. Like on Friday we do like 700 dishes or something like that. So you can't stay on the phone talking about like if it's gluten free or does it have peanuts. Everything is online. So we embrace technology. We're so if you place an order on our platform, it'll text you when it's ready. It'll send the order to the cooks. The cooks know what to order. The bagger knows what to order. It's all automated. So our food comes out like in 8 minutes, and people get annoyed because they'll place an order and like get ready to leave and like your food's ready and they're like, oh, why you make it so quick? Like it's gonna be cold. And so in the beginning, the commissions for the third party were really steep, but we found a way. I mean, they put a 20% cap on it, but now we pay about like 7% for commissions because we found a way to deliver ourselves through DoorDash on a back-end portal that costs like $7. The customer pays $5, we pay $2. Unless it's over $75, we pay for it all. And we're exclusive with Postmates, and it's like 12%, which is like the lowest they offer to people. So we navigated that pretty well, where we're down like 15% from last year, which is pretty unheard of, which is
That's really, really good. And then for you guys, I know when we spoke, you guys had changed your operating hours. So have you extended your hours at all, or is it still like a shortened period of time?
For us, we used to be open to like 2 from the bar aspect, but now it did shorten. Like in the beginning, you could really notice people when the street lights go on, they don't go out. But now more people are like kind of having quarantine fatigue. So a lot of people are now trying to go to patios, trying to go out to places. But our sales are still holding strong. We added some new product line, and we always try to improve. We add new dishes and new drinks. always engage people with social media and just make a quality product.
That's awesome. And then for you, Teresa, like, have you gotten back up to like normal patient numbers since before the pandemic, or is it still kind of like rising back to normal?
So what I'm actually quite surprised and happy is that our production numbers have actually been growing, which I'm really thankful for. But in terms of the level of patient, the number of patients we see per day, we're still capping it at the 50% just because the pandemic's not over. So I got to make sure that for our office, we're running and keeping it safe for everybody. But in terms of new patient exams, so my productivity is going up, but the number of patients I see per day, I still keep it at 50% capacity just to keep everyone safe.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then jumping over to like the sales side of things, my first question is for Harold. When the pandemic first hit, like how did you deal with these sales fluctuations? Like at this point between like March and today, like how have your revenue and margins shifted during this time?
Yeah, so when the pandemic hit, we had a massive drop in revenue in March. And I think that's probably across the board in most industries. Immediately, we had to furlough staff, cut back on expenses wherever possible, delay paying vendors, sent a message to our landlord asking to delay rent payment because we didn't know if we would be able to keep the lights on if things kept going the way they did. However, surprisingly, once May came around, May, June, July, we started having record numbers. And we are up now year over year, about 35%. And a lot of that, I think, can be attributed to people spending more time at home doing home improvement projects. And solar is one of those prime home improvement projects. As people spend more time at home, the cost burden of electricity is shifting from the employer to the employee. So everybody's cranking their ACs on at home and paying more for the electric bill. So although the first few months were very scary, it's turning out to be a great year for us.
That's awesome. And that's across the nation, right? Because you guys ship nationwide.
Yes, that's right.
That's great. And then Theo, same question for you. How have sales been impacted between March and now? Because I know you have some product in like grocery chains and you work with retailers. So yeah, like how was all of that impacted?
Yeah, a big goal for us this year at the start was to begin really expanding retail and distribution. And when COVID hit, obviously the first thing all the grocery stores focused on was toilet paper and hand sanitizer and soap. So we got pushed out, but we were fortunate because, all of our products are on Amazon, and because we fell under food, we sell a line of sauces and seaweed snacks. We were considered an essential item, and our team has focused a lot on Amazon the past 2 years, from fixing up the customer reviews to really working on all of our pages. And we actually saw a huge bump in revenue and profitability in April, May, just from organic traffic coming on. We actually slashed our marketing budget because we were actually focused on fundraising. Thankfully, investors did come through to help us, but we actually cut our marketing budget by like 70%. We were lucky enough we didn't have to furlough anyone, and we made it out really well, and things turned out pretty well. I think we ended up growing, about 30 to 40% month over month in April and May. It started to normalize a little bit in June, where we started increasing our marketing spend a little bit, and then retail started kicking back on in around June, July timeframe.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of your product too can be used in like home cooking, which I'm sure also kind of took off during the pandemic, right?
Yes, we started noticing a lot of new website visitors to our recipe pages, which is great. We're glad. I mean, it always done decently, but we started seeing a big pickup there, and we were thrilled. And thankfully, we continued operating during the time. And our chef Chris O was doing a lot of recipe pages, doing a lot of recipe development. He was doing a lot of stuff on Instagram, which helped out, and so we were very fortunate.
That's awesome. And then for you, is your current office all back at work these days, or are you guys still working from home?
Yeah, we actually never shut down the office fully. We have about 5 people coming in throughout sort of the same five people that are all full time. We do have our other 7 people working from home. That was probably the biggest adjustment was, we were onboarding people, new interns over the summer. And the hardest part was onboarding these people and giving them a sense of like culture and community and like, you're joining a team when they're, just on going through Zoom and using Slack. So we had to get kind of creative. We did a bunch of like cocktail classes through Zoom and things like that to build some team chemistry and get everyone to know each other. But I still don't think it ever fully replaced, a normal team happy hour, but I think it, everyone was really appreciative of it.
Yeah, I think employee morale is one of the things, like even on our own team, like I noticed it just, even though we were still in the office a few days a week, it definitely just took a dip because you're not getting to see your coworkers on a daily basis. During this time, have you guys found any, like open to any of you guys, but have you guys found any good, I guess, strategies when it comes to keeping and boosting employee morale?
Yeah, that's one thing that has been pretty tough for us, especially as we've tried to hire more salespeople during this time. And the transfer of knowledge that happens with remote workers has been difficult. We noticed the sales team or people in the office are definitely more tightly connected, and there's more company tribal knowledge that gets passed between them. They ramp up much faster. We do utilize a tool called Slack, and we try to engage as many of the remote employees as possible. Big question is we've been trying to figure out how to do a company holiday party this year, which is usually a big morale booster. But yeah, given the COVID situation, it seems a little tricky. I'd love to hear any tips if anybody has some.
Yeah, I think outdoor, socially distanced, like barbecues, but I know the guidance is changing daily. So yeah, I think for us too, we were trying to figure out how to not do it over Zoom, but it just seems like that perpetually ends up being the answer. And then for any of you guys, like, have you had other issues with like labor or like, employee morale during this time?
I've had some staff turnover just kind of indirectly related to COVID. So that was definitely a challenge. I think part of that came to reevaluating the office and figuring out how to restructure it and make it work for the team. So I think for a bit, my staff felt a bit overworked just because we had to catch up on patients from being closed for 2.5 months. And so I definitely had to do some things to try to boost morale. One of the things I did was dental assistants in the Bay Area are good ones are extremely hard to come by. So I wanted to make sure my staff felt valued. So since I was I'm seeing less patients per day, I decided to not rehire a full-time staff, and I gave my staff a great bonus. So that of course helps boost morale. And then what I've done is treat them to meals and foods that, we don't go out for that, but, and the other thing is just trying to be more vocal about how much I appreciate them, really acknowledging when I see them doing something great in the office and just making them feel the love.
Yeah, definitely important these days. I think, more than ever for sure. Did anyone else have anything to jump in on this before I move on?
I guess I can talk. For us, morale is really important, especially being a small company and not having an HR department. I kind of learned that the hard way, getting sued. So we instantly gave everybody like a $2 raise, and we kind of shifted the model where the cooks get a slice, they're in the tip pool. I think moving forward, all our not restaurants, but like these markets and to-go places, we're trying to change the model of like the traditional restaurant, where cooks make an hourly wage and like the front of the house gets hourly wage plus tips. I don't, even though it's not fair, we're trying to make it more equitable to a certain degree.
Yeah. Do you feel like, because obviously people aren't dining indoors and stuff, like generally when you're doing Postmates and Grubhub, have the tips still been comparable, or is it just more difficult now? Because
in the beginning it was really, really good. It was like 40% tips, and now it's down to like 10. People are tipping like 10-15%. I don't know what's going on, but
yeah.
I really think it's quarantine fatigue. I think in the beginning everyone thought like everyone that worked at Bonds or like your delivery guy was awesome, but now we're like mad that they, that they don't come on time, or your package is all in the wrong corner of your house porch or whatever. I think we're spoiled, a little fatigued.
Yeah. Well, I think it was interesting because when I spoke with all of you guys, like everyone was like, yeah, I didn't think this was going to go longer than like 2 months max. So I think that's probably everyone's thought. So they were like, yes, I'm going to be super generous now.
Like people with stocks and stuff like that, and like that can telecommute are doing well, but like all my workers are suffering that I didn't bring back, like like the front of the house staff. Your normal day-to-day people are suffering, and like, they went from $1,000 a paycheck or, a week to $400 now.
Yeah.
So everyone's tightened up and just worried, and there's no end in sight. There's no help in sight, and it's just rough.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah, I mean, just a reminder to all of us to really, really look out for our service workers during this time, especially into the holiday season.
You give employees like grocery bags, but after a while they stopped taking it. And I was like, okay, everyone's just fatigued. It's just like, you just find your own routine to, get through this.
No, agreed. It's continual adapting and adjusting. And then on the customer end, I'm curious, like for you guys, how have you seen your customer purchasing habits and preferences change during this time? And do you think this is like a permanent shift or a temporary shift? Anyone can answer this one.
Personally, orthodontics, I've just seen the majority of my exams lately have been adults, which I find kind of interesting. I think right now, because everyone's wearing a mask, a lot of adults are like, oh, this is like the perfect time to get braces. So usually I get the first question is, am I an Invisalign candidate? And lately I'm like, I don't mind braces, like whatever's faster. And so the majority of my exams lately have been adults, and I usually cater to a lot of teenagers. So I think a lot of parents are kind of keeping their kids from coming in for exams and maybe pushing off orthodontics till later. But I think what's nice is eventually they will need braces. So I'm thinking right now I have a larger influx of adult exams, and eventually it'll swing back over to having a lot of kids come in probably late. But yeah, so that's the change in orthodontics, at least that I've noticed.
Interesting.
Apart from people doing more home improvement projects and trying to eliminate their newly higher electric bills, I have noticed that there's a certain segment of our customer base who are like doomsday preppers. And with all the uncertainty that's going on, not only with COVID, but the politics and the state of the nation, we have an influx of customers wanting to go solar and off-grid with batteries. And they're basically like stocking up in the event of an apocalypse type situation.
Wow, it's like the toilet paper people, basically, right?
Right, yes,
Same
the
group?
toilet paper people, yes, are going solar.
That's good. They're also saving the world, I guess, right?
For us, we actually noticed a big uptick in our email marketing effectiveness. Oddly enough, we had, a fairly large list to begin with, and we kind of knew, baseline numbers for interactions with our emails. But, Christina, who manages all that for us, started saying like, hey, there's a big uptick. I'm going to try, increasing the frequency and coming up with some new ideas. And, we're like, yeah, go for it. And then she actually grew our website revenue pretty drastically, especially in April and May. And it was interesting because a lot of people were clicking through. The metrics went up pretty drastically. And I was kind of like, people are working from home. They're checking their emails a little bit more, clicking on more things. And so it started to make sense, but we were happy to see that. And, it forced us to think a lot more about our content, recipes, and things like that as well.
Yeah, because for you, it was like you were always dividing your business between e-commerce and retail, right? So it was like the e-commerce side that really, really took off.
Yeah, in the beginning. And then retail slowly started picking back up. The hard part for us was, being in California, you felt like everything was shut down. There's nothing opening up. And then we talked to some of our people out in like Wisconsin. We do really well in the Midwest and in Wisconsin, Minnesota. And they're like, no, we're ready to take product back in. We're ready to start opening the doors. And so we were kind of like, okay, we can't go out there, but, we'll get the product out there and we can do everything via email and set everything up. But it was pretty interesting. that was when we started realizing every part of the United States was operating very differently. So it took us a lot of time to really, jump on the phone with people, talk to them, try to understand, what's going on in each state or each region. And that helped us out a lot, especially as we started to grow in retail stores.
Yeah.
I think for me, like anybody, if you think this pandemic hasn't changed the way you do business, then you're probably going to go out of business, to be honest. So that's why we're opening more markets and grab and goes and convenience stores. We're trying to, just like K-pop, we're trying to launch a wholesale food service, grocery store products, but we're also trying to prove it to ourselves, see what sells. We're going to come out with a line of dumplings by a co-packer that should be out by summer next year. So we're trying to diversify just like everybody else, but also how we went automated, how we can deliver within 8-10 minutes. I think we're embracing that. So like that's going to be at our Italian American grocery store. It's going to be at our Torta Carniceria. It's going to be at our Asian 7-Eleven. So you definitely got to change and think about what's going on. I always think about like IBM or like Kodak or like even like GE. You can be like the top of your class for so long, but if you don't embrace change, if you're not thinking forward and if you're not being the first person or even the second person to do something new, then you're probably going to fall behind. Yeah.
And for you, David, I think when I spoke with you, I was like, wow, how have you been so productive during quarantine, during this whole time?
And we're in the mix beforehand. And now that I had a lot of, not free time, but yes, there was a lot of time to get these off the ground and lay the foundation. We built a farm, so we're trying to go vertical. It's an urban farm in Mid-City. So I think there was a market correction coming anyway for restaurants. We were going to do these things either way, but now it just makes more sense, and we're moving faster because of great real estate deals.
Yeah, and I think that part's really interesting, for all of you guys. Do you feel like the stuff you're doing when it comes to technology and marketing, is this stuff you normally would have planned to do in the future anyway, or was this something specifically brought on because of COVID?
I think because of COVID, I didn't think I had a chance to compete with like my grocery store that we're going to open. How can we compete against Instacart, Target, and Costco, and Whole Foods, and Amazon? But it's like we're already doing it where it's like it's not that much more work. You already take pictures, you already have a website, and you just got to plug it into the back end. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then what about for the rest of you? Do you feel like there were any technology software decisions you made just purely because of COVID or expansion, or do you feel like it was something you would have done anyway?
I think for us, it's just, just things we would have done anyway, but more online collaboration tools. Obviously, all our meetings are via Zoom now. Actually, we've been using a lot more Google Meet instead of Zoom just because of the free aspect of it for multiple participants. Mm-hmm. We've been using Wingman to track calls. So sales reps who are working from home now, to track their efficiency, we're using various online softwares for that.
I was contemplating doing virtual consultations, but it's just really tough in dentistry to try to do things virtually because ultimately I need to put my hands in patients' mouths. So I did not go full-fledged into the virtual consultation realm, but what I did was I did install a little widget on my website so that it makes it easier to schedule appointments at my office. Sorry, that's my dog. To make it easier for patients to schedule appointments. Because I know right now a lot of it is they want things done right away and things to be easy. So this little widget's nice because what it'll be like Janie wants an appointment, and then you'll put your phone number, and it allows me to communicate through the website and through our app, and it communicates with their phone. So even if they step away from the computer, we can still communicate with them. And that one's called Podium, and they're you can install it on anyone's website. Actually, it's not just a dental specific.
Interesting. And I think you had talked to me about virtual consultations, how there are dental offices doing it, but financially it didn't seem like it was necessarily worth the investment, right?
Yeah, for orthodontics, and in general, as a specialty, a lot of moms will do multiple visits and go to many orthodontists. I feel like you just don't get that same customer interface as you would if they came into your office. Like I want them to have the full experience, to see me in person and get a tour of the office. So jumping onto that virtual platform, a lot of my friends who went full-fledged into it said that they got a lot of hits, but ultimately no one really started. They kind of just wanted to know, how much would it be with you? And then they'd go to the next one. And maybe they had a better experience in office at somewhere else. So it just didn't seem like a space that I wanted to explore for myself.
Perfect. And then jumping forward, I think one of the other things I want to talk about was supply chain. I think even for our business, like supply chain impact actually hit us later on. We had a few delays with production because we source from overseas, but even now, like getting stuff from overseas, there's crazy port delays. Freight has increased by 40%. So I'm curious for you guys, like Theo, for you, I think we talked about how your supply chain was affected. Have you been able to get that to normalize? And how was it at the very beginning of COVID?
Yeah, I think it was like right around probably late February was when our whole team started reaching out to all of our suppliers, probably on like a weekly basis, just to make sure, things were going to be okay. And it turned out the ingredients, things that we were bringing in turned out to be fine. It was actually our bottle supplier where the lead time jumped from, we called him one day. He was like, yeah, the lead time's still 4 weeks. The next day he calls us and says, the 4 weeks just moved to 6 months. I'm not sure why. And we're like, well, that's kind of a problem for us because we're growing, we're trying to get into new grocery stores, and the last thing we want to do is miss an order or PO. And, that was really when Mike and I realized how valuable our team was. We started talking to our suppliers and we found a different bottle, but it required us to sort of change our labels in a week and a half. And the amount of space on the label was also increased like 2.5 times. And so it wasn't like a small project to relabel. And it was actually one of our interns, Stephanie, who's, still a UCLA undergrad. She sort of said, hey, I think I can do this. And, she normally does graphic design, but she finished off our labels in a week, redoing all of our sauce labels, increasing, everything. And they came out great. She worked a little bit with our chef, Chris and Mike, and it was pretty amazing how quickly she turned that around. And it also forced us to do a lot more work on our forecasting, knowing that these lead times are going to change out and have options available. So it really, our finance team took a lot of time to really take a deep dive into, how much we think we needed to order, how quickly we needed to get it, and working, again, with a lot of our supply chain partners and just sort of being transparent with where we were. I wouldn't say we feel 100% about our supply chain, but we feel pretty confident. We've had to make some odd fixes, but our retailers, actually, some of them like it. And so, yeah, I think, overall, we feel pretty good about where it's at.
Yeah, definitely. I think supply chain has been a question mark. And then for you, David, as a restaurant, I'm sure ingredients and everything, have you seen any, disruptions with that?
A couple. So, of course, a lot of our products come from China because we're a Chinese-Taiwanese restaurant. I deal mainly with one Taiwanese purveyor who's been very supportive of us. He special orders stuff for us. So he always lets me know if there's an issue. But since we've been doing this, there's always been an issue. We get like special product from Taiwan that's like organic, red yeast, black bean, soy paste. That's always trouble, hard to get. So we have 4 different ways to get it, or 4 different manufacturers. I'm a spokesperson for a Heinz company. It's called ABC Sauce. So they're a like a Southeast Asian sweet soy company. So they had trouble importing stuff. So we started, we have a factory. We have a 5,000 square foot warehouse food factory in Gardena. So we order things in pallets now. We're like the largest user of Lee Kum Koo gluten-free hoisin sauce. We're going to start making it now. But so now we're going to start going vertical because we just opened this. We got an SBA loan. We just bought the property and remodeled it. So now we have all like this industrial cooking equipment. It's going to be USDA inspected and all that stuff. So we're getting ready for all that. But to avoid all those supply chains, we always have backups. Like we usually buy a pallet of something and then we just use that as backups if our purveyor can't provide it. At the most, it's like a month or two. So we always have a month or two supply in the back, especially during these trade wars. I think that's when it started happening. So at least that got us ready. But we're trying to go vertical now and grow our own food and try to make our own products to avoid that kind of stuff and make better quality products. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's great too, like creates a lot more local options, right? Like you said, so you have control of your own supply chain during this time. And then for you, Harold, I think you said you produce all your stuff domestically, right? And you source all the materials. So for you, did you encounter anything like that?
Yeah, we have a mixture of international and domestic components, and fortunately, everything was well stocked. So yeah, no supply chain issues on our end. The biggest challenge we probably had was dealing with cities and building permits. So typically when somebody goes to get solar, they need to take their paperwork into their local city and get the permit for it. However, because of COVID, a lot of city offices were shut down and people couldn't go in person to get to work through any building permit issues. So there was a little bit of a bottleneck there as a lot of cities have started to transition to a digital or online format.
Interesting. So are you responsible for like some of those permits as well? Or is it more so just your customers were getting like stopped by that?
We provide the engineering plans for them and they take it into the city. So yeah, the customers get stopped there.
Got it. Okay. And then one more thing I wanted to ask about just before we jump over to Q&A is for you guys. I think all of you guys got the PPP loan from when we discussed. Have any of you guys gone through the repayment process yet?
Not yet.
Nope. No.
There's rumors of a potential automatic forgiveness for loans below a certain dollar amount, which would grant blanket forgiveness for borrowers for doing like a simple attestation. But it would take a bill from Congress to make that a reality. So right now, given the state of the current government, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But I am kind of holding out some time because I know that we have 10 months from the end of that 8 to 24 week covered period. So.
Yeah, because I think that's like the main question for everyone. And what was the threshold that you heard, right? Was it under, I think, 150,000 or something?
They already approved 50,000, but right now it's under 150,000. That's the next one that I think 82 or so % of the loans were under 150K, but it only took up a really small percentage of the amount of the total loans.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful to know. And yeah, it doesn't sound like anybody else has gone through the whole process yet, because I'm curious too. For our business, we haven't filed for repayment. So hopefully it's easy, but you never know yet at this point. Oh, and then for you guys, was there anything else like grants, business grants, or anything that you found that you were able to apply for and get for your business that would be good for, the listeners to potentially apply for?
We took the PPP and EIDL, and then there was a small grant in California for PPP or personal protective gear, the personal protective equipment, PPE. They were providing 10 grand for that. So if you installed like barriers in your office or masks for your employees or things like that, air filters. So we got some money there.
There's also the CARES Act Provider Relief Fund. And that one, they did another round of it, but the expiration of that was just on November 6th.
Yeah. And then for you guys, like what resources do you guys use, to look up like constantly changing information, what's available, like the repayment and everything? Are there certain websites you guys would refer people to that you think would be really helpful?
Well, it looks like we've got an audience member that can help, Marcy Green.
Ooh.
But
Thanks.
we've mainly been working with our CPA. I'm also part of a small business owners network, and that's been helpful.
For dentistry, the American Dental Association has been really helpful. They do like a weekly, not only like a news summary, but little like reminders, like this is the last week to apply for the CARES Act or stuff like that. So they've been doing a pretty good job of keeping all their members informed.
Luckily for me, I've gotten 4 SBA loans, so I'm pretty close to like the regional SBDC program director. And I think it's just like any other business is like, you got to use your network. You got to keep the relationship open. The lender for my warehouse was the one that gave me PPP money. So we're always in contact. We're always thinking ahead. And, you know, I just talked to her last week. She says, don't even worry about it right now. We're still trying to figure it out. At first she told me the end of the year. So like, what is it? What's the date today? So I called her last Friday. I was like, well, near the end of the year, what should I be doing? She's like, oh, don't worry about it. Like,
it's fine. It'll get figured out.
That's the relationship we built. Yeah. So that's like everybody, and that's what you should be working on. Like, don't ask for money when you need it. You should have these things when you don't need. I mean, when you don't need it, when they want to give it to you, because when you need it, they won't want to give it to you. That's a kind of the moral of the story. And just
yeah.
And it's not Wells Fargo, it's not Chase, it's like these local places. That's where you're gonna get help. Try calling Wells Fargo about your PPP money. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I think that was definitely like the first round of PPP was just insane for everyone. And it was just like everyone was just trying to dive into the pile. So I think for us, it wasn't until the second round that we were able to get anything once kind of like all the dust had settled.
Wasn't that scary for like a month?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No idea what was happening.
I was one of the first ones out of all my restaurant friends. we were one of the first ones, like the first week or like the 5th day, I think. We were pretty lucky.
Yeah, no, that's definitely great. And then jumping into audience questions. So I had a question for David and Theo. Do you have any thoughts on the cloud kitchen restaurant concept? Do you think it'll last past COVID and be successful?
I took a look in the chat. No, David answered it. I was actually going to say the same thing. That's what I've heard about cloud kitchens, is that the economics are tough. But, you know, I'm sure, David, you have a lot more insight into it.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at it really hard for like the last 3 years. We even went to Travis Kanalnik's house.
Yeah.
Were you there?
I wasn't there, but it sounds awesome.
Yeah, so, I mean, we've been looking at it for a while, but like, I just did simple math, like 30% goes to them. So if you did $1 million, 300,000 would go to them. And then another 5% on top of that, because they charge 30 plus 5% marketing. So that's 35%. Cloud kitchens take around like 3 or 5% of your commission. It used to be a flat fee, but not now. And then you pay $6,500 now, I think, for like a 300 square foot space. So now, if you do all the math, you're like down to like 450 plus your food costs. Your food costs, if you're lucky, it's 30%. That's 300,000. So now you're talking about 150 left for payroll. Why even do it?
Yeah.
That's if you're successful. None of them. I asked how many are doing it for $1 million. Only the big guys. Only like like Chick-fil-A and Burger King and all that stuff. And like trying to get market share is incredibly tough on the delivery platform. Luckily, we built a name for ourselves. But when you go into a new market, even us, like we floated the idea because we had a commissary kitchen in Hermosa that we rent until our other one was built. It was hard for us to get market share. We ran promotions, all this stuff. Like if you're new to town, it's hard. And so, yeah, we actually signed deals for 3 cloud kitchens all at the same time because they gave us the best deal. But then we got there, and what I realized, all tech companies will just grind you into the ground. You're just a number, you're just an expense, you're just an income. And so like they built it all wrong. And I was like, dude, where's the air conditioning? They're like, oh, dude, don't even talk. You signed an agreement. You know there's no air conditioning. We're in shipping containers in downtown LA, cooking with fryers and woks. It's 100 degrees inside. They're like, no, you signed up for this. You knew it. We're like, okay. And then we're like, well, you want a class action lawsuit? And they're like, oh, okay, no. Like they got us portable refrigerators or ACs the next day. And we're like, well, you guys aren't following all the protocols. Like people were walking around without masks, coughing and whatever. And we just kept pointing out everything wrong. Like all the plugs, like just as this is what tech people do, like build something awesome, then they do the numbers and try to grind it out, the most maximum profit. But they put all the plugs in one corner. It's like, how am I supposed to plug in everything? This is like basic shit. So they're like, oh, we'll give you all your money back. You can leave, and like, don't tell anyone that we did this, and don't tell anyone our problems. And why don't you come next week and like consult for us? I was like, no, dude. Like, I don't want to deal with people that treat your partners, your vendors like that. Like I only want to do things the right way with the right people and with the right product. And so after that, I was just like, but also like there's we visited Reef, Kitchen United, all those things. I think for a startup, it's okay, but like I said, the costs are way against you. And like, how do you prep, right? How do you train? How do you have coverage? How do you, have, if someone misses, who's going to go in there, right? So we're lucky because we're a restaurant, we're busy all the time, and we have extra bodies. But just the prep alone, if you're like, let's say you have $1 million sales, that's awesome. But how do you prep in literally 200 feet? How do you store that? All that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, sorry, for us who are not in the food industry, what is a cloud kitchen?
Oh, so before it was a great idea when real estate was like $10 a square foot. Now it's like you can get any spot you want now. So their whole thing is kind of gone. And they're like, oh, we have the proprietary technology from Uber and all this stuff. Well, I just use, there's so many platforms, but now you can just do it yourself with Toast and like what we do. It's like fully automated. That was the hard part. How do you get 5 tablets? GrubHub, Postmates, ChowNow, ChowBus, whatever, Fontuan. How do you integrate that all into your system without like writing it down and handing it to somebody? Because we use kitchen printers, we use computers, and keeping track of all that. But anyways, so now you can do that through Toast and like Chowie and stuff like that. I forgot the original question. Yeah, it's really hard. Oh, the cloud kitchen. It's someone buys like a warehouse and chops it up into like 15 pods. Each pod rents for like $7,000, which is like $15 a foot. It's like crazy. Plus you pay 3.5% commission.
So it's like WeWork, but for
WeWork, and it has a hood. So all you have to do is pay for the first and last months, and all the utilities, cleaning is included, or the triples. And then they have a 6 or 9 foot hood. And so whatever you can cook out of there is up to you. They give you a faucet, a sink, a refrigerator, and then you just go. Yeah.
Interesting. And then we have one more question saying, when COVID first arrived in the US, did any of you or your staff encounter any anti-Asian sentiment in your workplace? I guess either through customers or, through, I guess even, any kind of experiences there?
No, Bay Area is pretty high Asian population, so it's not here for me.
Not particularly. I have some customers wondering if solar panels from China will have COVID on them. But
I got that question too. They were like, oh, does it are you guys sanitizing the containers before, or like the product in the containers before it arrives? And I'm like, COVID doesn't live for 30 days on plastic.
Right.
I'm trying to think. Actually, we never received anything. A lot of the grocery store buyers that we were talking to would actually ask if we had been getting mistreated by other stores and things like that. But, we were like, no, everyone's been treating us pretty fairly. We haven't heard anything. So I think pretty fortunate there.
Yeah, that's definitely good. Yeah, fortunately, I don't think our business experienced any of that, but I know definitely it's been out there, from the news and everything. So it's good to hear there hasn't been anything in that regard. But also, we do live in a very diverse city, right? So it is also a different experience. But I know you guys have customers in different states and everything. So that's interesting. And then I think one of the last questions that I have is, if you could go back, or I guess first off, what do you think was the best, most creative decision that you made during this time? Or if there was one thing you could redo, if you could look back at March and be like, I wish I did this now, what would that be?
I wish I bought more Bitcoin when it crashed.
I wish I invested in Peloton too as well before the pandemic. But I think for me, I was going through some personal things during that first part of the closure, but I spent a lot of that closure time just enjoying little things like painting and side hobbies, but I really wish I spent that time on making more informational videos. That would have been nice to use in my practice now. Now I want to do it, but I don't have as much time to do it. So it would have been great to use that lockdown time when I was closed to focus on my practice instead of gardening.
Hey, gardening is a necessary thing.
I think for us, the lockdown actually came at a pretty opportune time for us. I think prior to that, we had been growing about 35% month over month. So our whole team was pretty beat. Like we were still staying positive, but we were all pretty exhausted. And we were, I'm sure Harold, you've been there where you're literally just trying to make it through that month. You're like, all right, we just got to make it through this month, and then it'll give us 2 days to rest, and then we got to do it again. But when it first came, it was the first time where we were able to tell everyone, hey, everyone just take a day or two and just relax. Like, don't worry about work. Everything will be fine. And then we'll come back next week. And I think those couple of days of relaxation, even though it was during quarantine, it's not much you could do. It allowed people just to like calm down. And then when we came back, everyone was kind of like, just 2 days gave us a lot of time to just refresh. And because things were still seeming like it was going to be shut down, we thought at that time for a week or two. So we're like, well, we have a week or two where we can sit down, strategize, and talk a lot about things about the company and how we want to fix it moving forward. And that reset really helped us. It really helped us throughout this whole year, really. And we were actually willing to share sort of some of the things we were talking about with our key investors, and they really believed in how we were approaching it. And so they actually gave us more money back then. And then we just closed our first preferred priced equity round a couple of weeks ago. Thank you. And, they were a part of that too. And so we're really thankful, again, Mike and I have a really great team. And so we're just really thankful that they hung in there with us and, we're able to fight through it.
Mm-hmm. And I think like you touched on it, I think it's being open with your team, right? Because I think there's so much uncertainty that like even your teammates, I think they don't know what their future looks like. So I think having that openness really helps get everyone, together to kind of work on it as a group effort.
So absolutely.
Yeah, I think when we furloughed, we were trying to figure out, okay, do we just furlough some staff, or how do we ensure that the team isn't worried about their jobs, and so we decided, and now it's just a furlough and pay cut across the board, including the executive team, and it helped feel like, okay, we're all in this boat together. And help bring people together, because we did have a slowdown a few years back where we furloughed only the operations and not the sales staff, and that caused some dissent in the company. So just having everybody feel like, okay, we're all in this together, I think helps morale.
And then before we end off, like, do you guys have any, I guess like if you had like one piece of advice for businesses out there who may be struggling through the pandemic or trying to figure things out, I think during tumultuous times, like the businesses that truly come out front are the ones who like find a creative way, right? Creative avenue. If you had any kind of advice, what would that be?
I guess I would sort of say, just keep your eyes open, because, there's a lot of opportunities that present itself. I know I've heard of a lot of startups pivoting and using their technology for something different. And so during these times, obviously keep trying doing what you're doing, but also have an open mind to, and sort of listen around, talk to friends, talk to people. I think talking always helps and it gives you new ideas. And so I think while it's definitely a tough time, I think that there's still a lot of opportunity out there, and a lot of, there's definitely a lot of money that are still going towards companies and things like that. And so, I think you just have to sort of keep your head up and just keep sort of fighting. But, I think a lot of, all entrepreneurs know that story. So I think it applies now more than ever.
Yeah, I do think there's still a ton of opportunity out there. And like Theo said, it's surprising to me how much money there is out there on the sidelines, just wanting to invest or be put to good use. One tip I would have for people is just look at trends. And if the trend is everybody is now shopping online and spending time at home, doing things online, if you don't have an online presence, or if your online presence isn't really optimized, there's a great opportunity for growth there.
I think mine would be just showing sincere interest in other people. I think it's better to be interested in other people than being, I'm sorry, my dogs are going crazy. Oh, being interested.
Your dog showing interest in you.
Yeah, your dog is responding to your comment. And then for you, David, any parting words?
I think what I would say to people is just do your homework, talk to people like Theo said, really know your industry. I read a lot. I learn a lot from other people. I read books, magazines, blogs, internet, whatever. But also formulate a plan and then just actually do it. I think a lot of people are too scared. And right now is the time of chaos and uncertainty is the time that you could actually start something and take advantage, I think. This is where the new economy is going to be built. This is where the new 5-10 years are going to be going, this direction. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys all so much. Like, really appreciate you guys taking your time to share your wisdom and experiences and all the learning lessons. And it's awesome to see that, you know, everyone's doing well and business is still going well. Just for people to know, for this panel, this is actually the first of a 3-part series. We're calling it our COVID Survival Guide series. And so in January, we're actually going to do a tax guide workshop. And then in March, we're going to do a legal guide. So if that's something that you might be interested in, you know, make sure you get on the APA mailing lists. If you are an APA small business, please reach out to us. We would love to work with you, do a future panel together and everything, just because, again, we want to collaborate and we want to find these avenues where we can really support each other. And then going into holiday season, just a little PSA to continue to support small businesses in your community. I know it's definitely like a tough year for many, and, you know, not saying anything about the big companies, but they're still making money. So like trying to find opportunities to support, you know, like small businesses, if you can change any of your purchasing habits as a consumer. I know like my husband and I, we talked about like this year for Christmas gifts, we're only going to buy from small businesses, you know, because it's easy to buy from like online retailers, but trying to find those opportunities. So yeah, just a reminder for that. But yeah, just a round of applause for our panelists. And thank you guys all so much for everything. And I guess happy holidays. We're almost there till the end of the year.
Thanks a lot for putting this on, Janie.
Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.